Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, and score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. I'm Callum, and today I'm joined by Euan. No Angus for us. I think he's out enjoying the sunshine. But Euan, how are we?
I'm all good. I'm just slowly melting in my flat. I wish I had a garden. I would be sitting out in the garden probably recording this, but sadly my garden's not really up to scratch. It's not a sitting garden, to be honest, but I would be looking like Ramsey Nisbet right now in a vest top and whatnot. But other than that, I'm all good, mate. We're off the back of a win at the weekend, which was hard fought, hard earned, but all good. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm very well. Obviously, we're recording this on the Monday, so terrific weather outside. I've just taken a brief break from kind of melting outside to come and do this, but excited to get back out. But excited to talk about, as you say, that win, and you know, it's kind of helped our chances of qualification, which I'm sure we'll get on to in a moment or so.
Yeah, exactly. I think it has given us that little opportunity, but as always, you can find this episode as well as all our others on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livi, so follow us or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss another episode.
We'll start this episode off by discussing our victory over Cove Rangers at the weekend as the Lions came back from behind to secure 3 points late on.
Next up, it's the return of Talk Livi question time as we answer questions sent in to us by you, the listeners.
And finally, we'll look ahead to our final League Cup group game as we take on Kelty Hearts at the Tony Macaroni Arena.
The Lions travelled to the northeast to take on League One champions Cove Rangers. Despite a first-half red card for Isma Goncalves and being a goal down at half-time, the Lions came from behind with goals from Ayo Obalai and our man Nicky Devlin to keep our League Cup hopes alive. Broonie, it's probably not the worst thing that Angus is away enjoying the sun, because he wouldn't have been able to contribute a lot to this section. Not being able to watch the game, unfortunately, there was no stream, but you were up at Cove. What was your take on the game?
You sort of touched on it there in the intro. Very, very uphill task with whatever Isma was doing. It is a red card for me. I think there was a few folk that they maybe hadn't seen it that were at the game and sort of were asking me at half time. But he's sort of grappling with the centre half, and you know, he just needlessly kicks out. I don't think it's a massively aggressive kick. I think it's just a get off me type kick. But I mean, you can't do it in this day and age, and it's a red card. So it's very, very ill disciplined. He's been bailed out by his teammates. I think Davey touched on that in the interview. He did it at full time. His teammates have bailed him out because we obviously go a goal behind. Bit of a frustrating one again, because you know it's what they call a second phase or whatever you want to call it off a set piece, and that's been a bit concerning. You know, the goals against Albion Rovers are set pieces, and again it's another goal conceded sort of from a set piece. It's a brilliant strike from Vigors, but you know, we don't fully clear our lines. But Davey must have put a rocket up their backsides for the second half, because we came flying out the blocks. We had a kind of half chance before the goal, and then Ayo knocks one in. I actually thought he was offside at the time, but we'll definitely take it.
You also thought it was Andrew Shinnie. I've seen you've been called out on the Livi Twitter.
Yeah, well, me and Dave were having a wee debate, and to be fair, from the angle we were at, sort of we were behind the two players, and they both go for it at the same time, and it looked like to me it come off Shinnie. And to be fair, to my left as well, guys that were a wee bit closer were all saying it was Shinnie. In fairness to Dave did say it was Obalai, and I wouldn't say I tried to correct him, but I just said I thought it was Shinnie. But the main thing is that the ball went in the back of the net. I don't think Aya was best pleased, but that's his second of the season after he's screaming against Morton. So you can have that.
But, that's harsh.
No. But it's a brilliant win in the end. Obviously, you mentioned Nicky Devlin. Don't know what he's doing on the left wing, but it's absolutely tremendous. I think he spoke to me at the end of the game, and he was just saying, I was praying that he passed it to Noobs on the right. It's a great break forward. It's actually the two subs combining well. Jason Holt's kind of ratting about in there, so's Omiyonga. I think it's Bruce Anderson that eventually gets the ball to Stefan, and then lovely ball through to Nicky. Touch kind of takes him away a wee bit and onto his left foot, and he'd actually had an earlier effort on his right foot, which he skied over the bar. So I wouldn't say I was very, very confident, especially with him bearing down on his left foot. But what a finish it is!
Absolute peach.
I don't think Mike's photos have done him any favours. I don't think it's the best of facials or technique or whatever, but it's a fantastic finish, right into the top corner, and he continues that tremendous streak. Again, spoke to him off camera this time after the game, and he was just saying, I said to him, you absolutely love a goal up north, not just for Livingston. I think he scored for us twice up at Aberdeen now. He scored at Ross County and now at Cove, and I think I'd need to look it up, but I'm sure he said he scored 4 goals for Ayr and they were all against Peterhead or something. So I mean, it's genuinely mental. Other than St Mirren, for us, they've all been up north. I think he's just desperate for a goal at home, but he'll not be complaining because we've got a vital 3 points, and it makes us look a wee bit better in the table now. Obviously, we qualified last season on 8 points as one of I think it was actually the third best second place team. So we'll be, obviously it's not in our hands. We'll be hoping for a couple of favours. Maybe even Cove could do us a favour and beat Inverness, and we could potentially finish top of the group. Who knows? But definitely out of our hands. But we give ourselves a good opportunity if we beat Kelty next weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned in terms of the group overall, I think we'll get a much better picture after Tuesday's games. Inverness are at home to Albion Rovers, which you would think is a bit of a home banker, that one, and Cove play Kelty. So, as I say, we'll have a better picture, and we'll have a better picture of what the rest of the groups look like, because I think because there's 5 teams in Europe, it'll only be the 3 best runners-up spots that will get in, so it makes it that little bit tighter. But as you say, we've given ourselves a chance by grinding out that result. I think the first half, it was not something for the spectator. It was for anyone that was maybe watching the thread on Twitter, and I know Nicky said it as well. It was very, very windy. The ground at the Balmoral Stadium, it's quite exposed to the elements. I mean, there was cows that could see into the game. It's that exposed. So I think the wind did play a big part. The ball was going back and forth quite a lot. The likes of Kelly, Pittman and Shinnie really struggled to get involved in the game first half, I thought, because it was just going back and forth all the time. The first major talking point is the Goncalves red card. I happen to be bang in line with it, and it's just stupid. It's so stupid from Goncalves. I mean, he's 30 years old, should know better. But what I thought made it worse is he has a second swipe at him after Collins already whistled. He has a second swipe at trying to kick him. It's absolutely stupid. And I've seen an interview that Callum Carson's done with Andrew Shinnie, and I don't think even the apology in the dressing room at halftime really cut it from some of the players, and I think they had a word, and I can completely understand why. And listening to your bit that you did with Davey after the game as well, Davey wasn't best pleased. I think he can accept the red card if it's a challenge or something like that, but for ill discipline like that, it's not on. And I think he'll need to do a fair bit to make it up to his teammates for that. But as you say, being bailed out, we still created a couple of chances when we went down to 10 men. Bambula had one when Montano's made a great run from left back and played him in. But as you say, the goal right on half time, you're thinking, oh God, you're thinking the worst. It's a cracking finish by Ian Vigurs, but as you say, that second phase isn't defended well enough. Nobody really picking him up on the edge of the box. And seen over the years, Ian Vigurs does have a bit of quality and is capable of that. So really should be a bit more diligent in terms of picking him up. But came out the box flying and got the goal. It was a bit of a scramble. It wasn't the prettiest of goals, but Ayo's done well taking the touch. He's almost rounded the keeper in the 6-yard box and poked it home. I was quite convinced it was Ayo Obalai, mainly because my dad was about 5 yards away from it, standing behind the goal, and he said it was Ayo, so took his word for that. So when I put the graphic up, I was quite happy Ayo turned out to be the goal scorer. But we grafted away in the game. I thought I think we defended our box very well second half in particular, because as I say, the ball was coming back and forth quite a lot and really offer Cove any clear-cut chances. I think Mitch Mesjinson's had a shot from the edge of the box, which Connor turned around his post. But other than that, I can't think of a great deal that he's had to do. He's picked a couple of crosses out. But as you say, we managed to get the winner. It's that scrappy aspect when Hope's come on, and then Bruce has done really well. I think he's flicked it over the defender and Omiyonga's broken. This is no disrespect to the 3 players that were breaking, but when I saw a break of Omiyonga, Devlin and Nubli, and as you say, Nicky on his wrong side, I'm kind of going, this is an interesting counter-attack. Let's see what happens here. But it's an unbelievable finish by Nicky on his weak side. As you say, I don't think Michael's pictures have done him justice in terms of the technique and how he's followed through and basically face planted the AstroTurf. But it's a superb finish by the captain and well deserved. But one of my highlights of the game was Shay Logan was playing in front of me first half, and he appeared to be playing the game in a nappy. I just politely asked him, why are you wearing a nappy? And he shushed me and told me to enjoy the game. Well, Shay, if you are listening, I did enjoy the game. We won 2-1. So yeah, his part was shite. Let's be honest, it was a terrible comeback. But as you say, it's given us an opportunity in the group. We will need to go and beat Kelty, and I think we're probably going to need to hit a few goals past Kelty as well to try and up the goal difference a little bit, because we don't want those 2 goals at Albion Rovers coming back to haunt us. So, and that's not going to be an easy game. They're League 2 champions as well. So, but was there any players, any performances that really stood out for you, Bruni?
I'm not, no, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't. I think maybe the 10 men played a part. Again, it probably wasn't the most convincing win. I know you sort of spoke there about Ivan not having much to do, but I did think we weathered the storm for a wee bit, maybe from the hour mark till about 75 minutes. Obviously defended well. Maybe you look at Fitzwater and Obalai, who probably defended the box well. I think Fitzwater made a good clearance as well when he tried to go, I can't remember the forward who it was, but tried to round Konovalov, and I think Fitzwater was there to clear. But as I say, 60 to 75 minutes, they had a wee bit of a spell. I was quite impressed with the boy Scully in the middle of the park, who sort of broke forward. It was 5A and Vigurs who were maybe a wee bit deeper, and then Scully, who's quite tall and commanding as well, sort of broke forward and caused a few problems. Same with Leach on the right wing, who again I was quite impressed with, and Megginson obviously had a few chances too. You know, they've got a very good squad, Cove, and you look at, you know, some of the defenders as well. Shay Logan, who was at Aberdeen for a while, don't think Reynolds was involved. You know, you've got players like Kim, and the left back was fairly decent going forward too. So yeah, we did well, but as I say, it's probably not convincing for me. Again, I think the 10 men plays a part, and it's difficult to probably look at the Inverness game as well, you know, in terms of trying to come back from that one with 11-2. To be fair, I think we were very convincing against Albion Rovers, 3-0 up, albeit, you know, the scoreline doesn't make it look as satisfactory as it was, and you're probably a wee bit anxious towards the end, which shouldn't be happening. So wouldn't say I'm concerned, but I'm definitely not fully convinced, or probably not as convinced as I hoped I would be at this stage. But, you know, it's 6 points from a possible 9. It's decent, you know, as we kind of alluded to, and we'll get talking about in a few minutes. We have it all to do against Kelty. I think we should be able to beat them. Looking at their results.
Yeah, I think in terms of individual performances, I was quite impressed with Montano at left back. As I say, I mentioned it to you in the pre-season game, even against Morton. I've almost been more impressed with him playing deeper than when he plays in the front three. I think when he gets in and around the 18-yard box can almost sometimes panic a little bit, but I think when he's driving from deep like that, he's been really effective. As I mentioned, the ball was going back and forth a lot, so it's difficult to kind of speak about the three in the middle of the park, but I thought Nubly had a very good first half. I think he caused them no end of problems, but again, Nubly, he's outstanding outside of the 18-yard box, but I do think he will need to add that little bit of product when he gets into those areas, and I'm sure that's something that the management team and the backroom staff are trying to work on with Joel as well, to try and get a few more assists, a few more goals out of him, because he has all the attributes and all the skill to create problems for teams, and I think he did cause a lot of problems for Cove. But as you say, it wasn't a pretty game on the eye. To be honest, it was difficult to pick out those kind of individual performances, but those were the two that stood out for me. But as you say, we go on to Kelty Hearts, and we've given ourselves a chance of getting through into the last 16 of the League Cup.
Yeah, just on Christian there briefly. I've spoken to you a few times about it. I'd still prefer maybe to see him a bit further forward, but I would agree he maybe slipped my mind a wee bit. But he was definitely a standout, particularly for that run. You know, that would have been a brilliant goal. He took it by three players. He slipped in by Hambula on the left. He then beat his man and just fired it wide, tried to put it to the far post. But yeah, that would have been some goal. But yeah, Christian's a really frustrating one for me, because we've seen it in stages. I think maybe, you know, coming up from League Two, I think it was in England when he was at Port Vale. I think he maybe took a while, especially again, you know, during the summer there was still a bit of COVID going around. Last summer, sorry. He maybe took a while to adapt, especially to our sort of training. I'm sure he said that. I'm sure Davey said that as well. It took maybe Tom Parks a while and a couple of the other English boys. But yeah, he's definitely shown in stages that maybe if he gets a run in the team, you know, he could do well. As I say, it's a real frustrating one, because he's a guy I really, really want to do well. He's definitely shown in stages or shown in flashes during games, moments in games. Sometimes he can be poor and you can give the ball away, but he'll produce a moment of brilliance every now and again, as we saw on Saturday, beating three players against Hibs. You know, he's very, very good going forward, very skillful, very direct, but he probably just needs to show that a wee bit more. But no, I'm happy for him, and hopefully he can maybe get a starting berth again on Saturday. I'm not quite sure what Penrice is looking like. I assume he was injured from obviously not being in the squad, not travelling on Saturday, so probably not rush him back and give Christian a go again, maybe at left back on Saturday. As
you say, I don't think his performance at the weekend will do him any harm. It will certainly put him in the manager's thoughts. I'm absolutely sure of that. As you mentioned with Penners, he had surgery recently. I think there'll be a bit of managing him as well coming back in it. I mean, if I remember correctly, David did mention he probably played more in the Inverness game than he intended him to play as well. So I think there will be a bit of player management involved in there. But hopefully we can go into the game against Kelty and get the result which gets us into the last 16 of the League Cup.
Next up, it's the return of Talk Livi question time. We answer the questions sent in to us by you, the listeners. So first up, we've got one from Colin Brown, as a familiar name. How are we going to create more goals from set pieces this season? He says, in recent years, our long throws have been a source of goals, but those have dried up recently. Do we have a genuine free kick taker and a different source of goals in either Mullen or Penrice?
Okay, to touch on the two players he's mentioned there, and Josh and Penners, we touched on it when we were talking about the squad at the start of the season and the transfer business. That's probably one of the reasons Josh has been brought back in, is because of his dead ball delivery and how consistently good it is. So that doesn't surprise me at all, and that's probably a factor in why Josh is back involved in the squad. Penners, you saw second half of last season as well. He's come on leaps and bounds. He looks very good going forward. They obviously had a couple of assists in the game against Albion Rovers as well. So I'm sure Penners will be able to offer a bit of contribution in terms of assists as well. But I know Davies specifically looked at trying to get more bodies in terms of a bit of height and physicality to help with set plays, because the last couple of seasons it has been a bit of a weakness for us. But in terms of the quality from delivery, I think Sean Kelly's got a bit of a wand of a left foot.
Yeah, I agree.
There was maybe a couple of off deliveries from him at the weekend, but some of the crosses I've seen him put in since he's been playing in that centre midfield role and dead balls that he's taken have been very, very good quality from these deliveries. So I'm sure Sean will be able to offer a little bit in that regard as well if Josh isn't on the park, for example. So I think you've got a couple of guys who are capable of producing that little bit of quality in terms of delivery into the box from set plays, and that's who I would maybe be looking at as an alternative to the likes of Josh. We know all about Josh, but certainly from what we've seen from Sean, he's got a bit of a wand of a left foot, real quality in there. So I think he might chip in with the odd assist here or there this season.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the games in which we tend to struggle in, which is, the games in which the onus is on us when teams sit in, and the terminology low block or whatever is used a lot, and it's tough to break down. You're ultimately going to have to be looking at these other sources of goals, in terms of playing for set pieces or getting a corner, getting a free kick in a dangerous area and trying to just whip the ball in. If you can't play around and try and slip somebody in down the channel, etc., we'll need to probably score a few set piece goals this season. We've obviously got some danger from the back. We scored a few last season, looking at the tallies of Fitzwater and Oberlai. But yeah, definitely for me, I would say we probably need to score more from set pieces. I was just having a think as well there while you were talking. I'm trying to think of our last goal from a direct free kick, and I'm going all the way back to, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going all the way back in my head to, I think Josh Mullen scored one, in fact, at Aki's away. But again, before that, you'd probably say Keegan Jacobs at Motherwell, which was an absolute screamer. But I can only think of a couple in the last, since we've been in the top flight. I'm not asking us to sign a David Beckham or whatever, a guy that just takes free kicks. I mean, obviously he was much more than that, but I'm just trying to think. We don't really have a guy that steps up. Maybe you look at a Celtic and you go, I'm just trying to think of opposition players where someone will step up, maybe a David Turnbull, and you go, oh no, like it's effectively a goal when he's 20 yards out. For me, we don't really have, and I don't know, budgets, etc. It's difficult to find players like this, and they wouldn't be playing at Livingston if they're scoring every single free kick that they take. But it's just not a worry for me. It was just a point, just an observation. Probably scored about 2 free kicks in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I'm sure David Beckham will be really offended by you saying he could only take free kicks when he listens in. I know he's a regular on Talk Livi, so sorry Becks if you are listening.
Stick to making the aftershaves and the shampoos, David.
He's good, by the way. They're decent. They're not bad. But yeah, I kind of agree with that. But as I say, I think Sean will offer a little bit of quality from dead balls. Obviously, a different, being a left footer as well gives you a bit of variety in terms of Josh being a right footer as well. So it gives that little bit of variety. But the next question, it's another familiar name, ends with Semple, but it's Stuart Semple, the good Semple brother. With talk that Konovalov is struggling to settle, are we gambling too much on more foreign imports? What's your view on that then, Broonie?
I definitely think there's an argument for it. You look at this year and we've brought in another 2 or 3 more signings that we're not sure on, potentially. Obviously, it's very, 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 very early days, but again, nobody's really seen much of these players. So obviously, I think pretty much every signing like that will be a gamble. Obviously, the management team, etc., the scouts will have been watching these guys. They want just to sign them blindly. The likes of Scott Basindu, Phil Kankar, for example, guys like this, Konovalov as well. I think Davey's spoken about it a few times, and it's probably not a case of he just wants to go out and sign these players. I think it's a case that he actually has to, because if you're looking at it, it always seems like a get-out clause, etc. But we do have, I think, still the lowest budget in the division. And if you're going out and trying to compete in the English League One market, for example, you get blown out of the water. Even maybe the Championship market or teams that have gone to Dundee, maybe trying to offload a few players. I'm convinced Dundee will still be paying guys the same, if not more, in the Championship than what we're paying just now. But yeah, if you're trying to compete with St John's, Dundee United have just gone and signed Dylan Levitt from Man United, paid 300 grand for him, and that's a team that didn't beat us last season. So I don't think we can compete financially. So that's probably the reason for foreign imports. But on Stuart's point, maybe it is a little bit concerning that some haven't worked in recent years. I think a lot maybe last year was to do with COVID and things that Davey maybe bought. I think he admitted himself he maybe bought more quantity than quality. I don't know your thoughts, Euan. I'd obviously like to see more sort of Scottish talent bought, some British talent bought, but the foreign market has worked for us in the past.
Yeah, I'll kind of speak about Cannavaro specifically. I think his situation's a bit different from some of the other foreign players that we brought in. He was obviously signed in January, but it wasn't until maybe March that his paperwork was all finalised, just a couple of weeks before, not wanting to get into politics, but the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So I think with him being Russian, that's added to his difficulties in terms of settling in. I think read an article that Carson did with Davey, and he was talking about even the conversion rates for money that he's sending back home. It's gone from £1 is 120 rubles to £1 60 rubles. So his income's essentially half that he's sending back to Russia. So I think in his situation, there's more reasons why he's probably not settled in Scotland. Had this conflict not happened, I'm sure that wouldn't have been anywhere near as big an issue for him. So I think his situation's a wee bit different. In terms of the other foreign players, I echo what you say, Broonie. There's a bit of it that's forced. For example, if you look at players, say, in the Scottish Championship that have done well, it's all the same clubs are going to be looking at them. There'll be clubs in and around us in the league that will be looking at the exact same players. So, and as you say, the budget plays a part there, because these guys will be able to offer them more money to go and play at a similar level. So it's a no-brainer for these guys. If we're offering, say, £1,000 a week and these guys are able to offer double that, what are you going to take? It's quite simple. So we are forced into that bracket going into the foreign market. Is it a gamble? Yes, of course it is, because you don't know these players. They're needing to come in. They'll have a settling in period. And I think that probably follows on to another question that we've got, which Mike Walker sent us in, which is, what did Josh Mullen and Stefan Omiyonga have to do to get a start? And to kind of follow through on what I was saying, I think Davies needing to give guys like Bahambula or Bitsindu, Goncalves a bit more game time, because he'll want them up to speed for when it comes to the league campaign. So while Stefan Omiyonga has played at Hibs, he's played here in recent years. Josh Mullen has played his whole career in Scotland. He knows what the pace of the game is. Davey knows what Josh has got to offer. So for me, it's a case that he's needing to get the new guys up to speed. That's probably a bigger priority than giving somebody that he knows, has worked with for a number of years, more minutes. I think that's probably the reason. And Omiyonga's situation as well, he got married in the summer, so is a bit behind in terms of pre-season. So again, they'll be managing him individually almost in terms of getting him up to speed and match sharpness. So I wouldn't be concerned that Omiyonga came on at the weekend and got an assist, for example, and he was a wee buzz bomb in a couple of the pre-season games. So, and Josh has obviously featured and grabbed a couple of goals so far since returning for pre-season. So it's as Davey always likes to put it, it's not about the me, it's the we. And I'm absolutely certain these guys will feature heavily throughout the campaign.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. I think maybe trying to think of it in terms of a tactical point of view. Obviously, Josh Mullen scored against Albion Rovers. Maybe he would feel a wee bit harsh not to be involved against the likes of Inverness and Cove. But again, maybe the 10 men impacts his chances, and Stefan Omiyonga as well. Potentially, it's not a game for him. Maybe Saturday was, where he comes on, and we were ultimately trying to. I'm not sure if we were trying to hold on for a point, but it was a task for Stefan to go in and chase about, in games that, for example, Albion Rovers, in which we're expected to dominate, that maybe doesn't suit Stefan's game. And that's not to say, he's not a brilliant passer of the ball, he's not a brilliant dribbler, etc. But think maybe the games that suit Stefan more are the games against probably the bigger sides where he's going and he's ratting about, he's chasing down lost causes, etc. So maybe that. But as you touched on, I wouldn't be too concerned at all that they haven't featured very, very heavily. I mean, you look at Bruce Anderson, for example. He'll more than certainly be our number 9 again for this season, and he's had three substitute appearances. So yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned whatsoever.
David Badura, aka Hack, has sent us in a question. Bruni, this is specifically for you. Can we hear Callum's Aberdeen impression, please? I mean, since he sent it in, I've been dying to hear it.
I don't know if it's that good. That's my point.
Well, I've spoke to the red tinted glasses guys. They're going to listen in. I'll even snip it and send it to Glenn to give us feedback on it for you.
I just need a phrase to say or something. It's all kind of originated from we all got the motor up to Aberdeen. There was 5 of us in there, and we've obviously, because we're in Aberdeen, we've played the nae spicking, haven't we? That obvious classic video. So I mean, I can try. I'm trying to think. I've gone blank. I'm trying to think of a phrase on the nae spicking thing, because it is brilliant. Like the video is brilliant.
A phrase. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not 100% sure of the video you're talking about. I don't know if that's bad. Yeah, I don't know if this is a generational thing. I'm just really old.
I'll need to send you.
Oh, come on,
basically a guy from Aberdeen, and he sends a voice note to what he thought was a woman he was trying to get with.
I know, I have heard this. Is this about dripping like a broken fridge or something like that? Oh.
He's like,
come on, give us a bit of stroking hamstrings.
Hi there, sexy. I was just thinking about you, and I was coming into your room, and I was thinking about you with your photographs. Basically, a bit of that, and the boys were loving it. So I don't think the man that sent the voice notes is loving it, but it's always nice to take the piss a wee bit.
I've now just got flashbacks to when I was first showing that, and I just remember the stroking your hamstrings.
Rubbing your hamstrings.
Oh dear. Well, I'm sure Glenn and Callum on Red Tinted will analyse that. I don't think you're getting great marks for it though. But last question we have is from Josh Berthin. What do you think will happen with the goalkeeper situation? Bruni, you're the resident amateur goalkeeper on the podcast, so we'll come to you on that one.
Goalies union, mate. Although, to be fair, it's hard to be goalies union in this situation. But I definitely think Davey will be looking at maybe bringing in somebody else. I think we've had a few on trial here and there, but we have that for pretty much every position. Davey likes to get boys in and just have a look. Or, I mean, you look at a few boys over the year. I think Effie Ambrose was in last season and didn't sign just to try and get fitness up, etc. So sometimes you have a few local boys in or whatever. But I definitely think that we probably do need another goalkeeper in. If Davey's trying to offload one or both, because right now for me it probably does worry me if we were to start the season with one of those as our number one. So Max is a good goalkeeper on his day, and he pulls off a few good saves, but he's made too many mistakes at this level, and obviously they cost you. Ivan, we probably haven't seen enough of yet, but if there are rumours that he's not settling, then maybe we need another goalkeeper in to try and challenge them.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that, to be totally honest with you. I think he's been interested in a boy from Colchester. There was certainly one I saw, and I'm pretty sure Carson mentioned Jack Hamilton's been in on trials. As you say, we do that every year. We'll have guys in on trials, so that's not a surprise. But Davey's been quite vocal about it in terms of going into the market for a goalkeeper, and I would back the manager on that, to be totally honest. I don't think we've had a clear and evident number one. Last season, I think Max was, because of the situation as well with Dan Barden, but I don't think we've had a clear number one going back to Liam Kelly. And I think we need to sort that goalkeeper position out kind of going forward. But apologies, I actually just missed one question there. So Matt Hay, who regularly gets in touch with us, telling us to have some positivity when it comes to our predictions. How worrying was the loss to Cali Thistle? Bruni, you weren't on the podcast to discuss the Cali Thistle game in detail, but it's not a major concern, is it?
No, not for me. It's maybe a wee bit worrying, the fact that we were counter-attacked the way we were. But again, I think it happens, in a game that you're dominating. And I do feel we were on top until that goal, without probably creating as much. But no, not for me. It's probably not. I wouldn't say worrying. Definitely not worrying. Maybe slightly concerning, but not worrying. And again, I think it could be seen as a cop-out, but the red card definitely impacts the game. At 1-0, they then use the extra man advantage and they go and make it 2-0. It's poor defending for both goals. Don't get me wrong, and it's inexcusable whether you're playing 11, 10, or 3 men. Do you know what I mean? So it is.
It'd be really bad against 3 men.
Yeah, we obviously go and get a goal back with Jason Holt, and we could draw the game and take it to pens with 10 men. So we showed a wee bit of fight, but definitely do think that it's potentially a different game if it stays 1-0 and we're chasing for that equaliser. We saw it on a couple of occasions last season, even on the last day, we're 1-0 down to Dundee in a game we were dominating. They kind of hitting the breaker with one of their first attacks. So that gave us a kick up the backside, and we ended up going on to win that 2-1 thanks to Gary Malley. So we might well have done that. Who knows? But nah, definitely not too concerning. Just very frustrating in terms of not making it plain sailing in the group.
Just to touch on the man himself, great to see him back on the bench with the gloves on, wasn't it? And even better, I'm almost certain I heard the announcer say he was number 69, which is just utterly hilarious. If that is the case, that he's number 69 going into the season, the big man. The Broxburn Buffon is back for the next 6 months. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. But
I've never heard the Broxburn Buffon before.
But to touch on the Kelty Thistle game, I'm not concerned. At that point, we were 2 competitive games into the season. I don't see the point in panicking at that point. And if you look at the League Cup across the board, I think Aberdeen are the only top flight team that have maximum points from their games so far. Hibs have lost to Falkirk. Ross County have drawn with Buckie Thistle, a Highland League team. St Johnstone have dropped points to both Annan and Queen of the South in League 2 and League 1. And then even St Mirren lost to Arbroath. So there's teams that have lost to worse sides than us that are in the top flight. So, and as you say, the circumstances in our game probably play a big part. And Inverness are not a bad team. That's the thing. They're not a bad team. I think they'll be I think the championship will be between them and Dundee this season. So they had a good campaign last year getting to the playoff final. So it's not like they're a bad side. So I wouldn't be overly concerned. Granted, the defending for the goals, as you mentioned, it wasn't particularly great, but it's right at the start of the season. Trust the manager. It's the way I would look at it. Trust the manager. I'm absolutely certain he'll get things going, and he's trying to settle in players as well at the same time in these games. These League Cup games are very difficult in the sense that they're almost like pre-season games as well, and you're trying to tinker, you're trying to get results at the same time, but also get guys up to speed here and there. So they're difficult games to manage, I think, at times. And yeah, as I say, I would not be concerned about the Inverness result. Granted, we want to win every game of football as a football fan. You want your team to win. Simple fact is, as a Livingston fan, you're not going to win every game of football. So try and not get yourselves too down about one game, is the way I would look at it. But no, once again, thank you to everyone for sending in their questions, and we will do this segment again later in the season as well. The Lions welcome League 2 champions Kelty Hearts to West Lothian as we look to make it through to the last 16 of the League Cup. Broonie, it's another potential banana skin, isn't it? As I mentioned, they're League 2 champions coming off the back of a very good campaign, but it's almost got a bit of similarity to what me and Angus discussed with the Cove game. New manager as well, with John Potter taking the job. Kevin Thompson's left to go elsewhere. So could we take advantage of the fact that it's a new manager in the door with maybe some new ideas?
Yeah, potentially. I would definitely be a lot more worried with Kevin Thompson in charge, personally. John Potter, I think it's his first job. Speaking to Davey after the game on on Saturday. He says he knows him very well. He says he's a fantastic coach. I think he was Jack Ross's number 2 at St Mirren, Hibs, Sunderland as well. So good to see him getting a job in his own right. Hopefully he's not too good come Saturday. I think they've started very, very poorly for me. You know, they ran Inverness very close. Inverness nicking I think an 89th minute winner at Kelty. But, you know, they played at home to Albion Rovers again on Saturday and they lost 2-0 for me, which, you know, was a massive shock. Albion Rovers seem to have improved a lot from last season. Obviously, they nicked a couple of late goals against us, despite us dominating that one. But, you know, that was a real shock result. I'd have fancied Kelty to put a few past them, you know. And you're looking at their squad. For me, you know, they've got a very, very good side, Kelty Hearts. Obviously, DJ, who we know very well in goals. Forster at the back. O'Weir, you know, 2 arguably championship standard players, if not a little bit higher. Forster used to be at Hibs. O'Weir was recently at Partick Thistle, and I think Morton. You've got Tidser as well. Riley in there. Barjonas, who formerly of Rangers. Nathan Austin, Joe Cardle. So, you know, the list goes on. It's arguably, you know, similar to Cove. They've got some real top end championship players, if not that little bit higher. So, you know, they've got players that can hurt you. But, you know, looking at it from a sort of optimistic point of view, obviously trying not to look too much into the results. But, you know, it's 2 games without a goal against teams that, you know, against Inverness and Albion Rovers. For me, we should be looking to win this game and maybe putting, you know, a couple of goals past them. Obviously, it won't be easy, but it's a game we're expected to go out and win, go out and dominate. I don't know, it's a tough one because I say I don't want to look too much into the results and then I am. But for me, if you're getting beaten 2-0 at home to Albion Rovers, that's a side that Livingston should be going out and beating comfortably for me.
We're obviously favourites going into the game. We're the top flight club against the League One club. There's no shying away from that. But they are a team on the up, having come through the Lowland League and up through the playoffs and then winning League Two as well. So, as I say, they're a team with confidence, but they've not kicked on so far this season in terms of the results. As you mentioned, Inverness playing a higher division opposition and ran them very close. But Albion Rovers, as you're right in saying, is probably a bit of an upset in terms of how you look at Week 2 last year and how it panned out. But, you know, kind of, as I say, similar to the Cove game in terms of the analysis, that looking at Kelty, they were the top scorers in the division, best defensive record in League 2. So, and they, as you mentioned there, they've got players that are probably of at least a championship level. Nathan Austin was top scorer in League 2 with 17. Joe Cardle got 12. Barjonas got 9. So they've got a goal threat kind of from various areas of the park, and then Callum Higginbottom, who's been there and done it across the years in Scottish football. He had 12 assists. Cardle had 9 assists. So, as I say, they've got threats in their side, and, you know, hopefully for many reasons, we hope it doesn't go to penalties because we know what DJ can do. So when it comes to penalties, we're all too familiar with DJ's penalty record. So hopefully it doesn't come to that and we can get it done in the 90 minutes, because that would give us the best opportunity of qualifying for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think it's a tricky game. It's a banana skin, but we need to go and win. And I think we're going to need to go and probably win by, say, 3 goals. I think looking at last year, we got through on 8 points, and I think it was a +4 goal difference, if I'm right in saying, which got us through. We're currently, I think, a +1 goal difference after the weekend. So I reckon we're going to need to probably up that a little bit to stand a chance of getting through as one of those best placed runners up. As I say, we'll have a better picture with us recording this on Monday. There's games on Tuesday night in our group which we don't feature in, so that'll give us a better picture of how the group's looking at. Maybe Albion Rovers can cause another little upset up at Inverness and take something up there. Who knows? But that would open up the group a little bit more for us if that was the case. But I can't see it happening. Let's be honest. So we're just going to need to focus on ourselves and go and do what we can do, which is hopefully go out and get a convincing result against Kelty. But I'm absolutely certain that Cove result and the manner of it, in terms of having to battle for 70 minutes with 10 men coming from behind as well, a difficult venue, I think that'll give the players a a big boost in confidence, to be brutally honest. It'll give them that little bit of buzz. They'll be feeling better about themselves this week off the back of that result, and I'm sure they'll be confident going in on our own patch against lower league opposition, that hopefully we can open them up a bit and create opportunities, and as I say, hopefully a few goals to go with it. But is there any personnel you would like to see given an opportunity at the weekend, Bruni?
I'd probably, now that Isma's going to be suspended, I'd quite like to see Bruce from the start. You know, again, I think we're trying to manage his game time, obviously not rushing him back from injury. Again, it's tough because you're wanting to control the game, so you're probably looking for a midfield three that's going to get on the ball and dictate the tempo. So maybe a Jason Holt in there. Scott Pittman gives you goals. I don't think it was Sean Kelly's best performance at the weekend, but again, I don't think it was a game for midfielders getting on the ball and passing it. I think Oberlei's probably done enough to keep his place. Oberlei and Fitzwater, I'd be happy with. Again, the fullback, if James Penrice isn't fit. You touched on Montano earlier. Be good to see him maybe get a run of games. Well, a couple of games in a row here. Josh Mullen potentially, maybe Nubly on the left, Mullen on the right. Give Bahambula a little rest. But again, I think it's tough to think about because Davey's trying to manage everyone's fitness and get maybe Dylan up to speed, etc. So it's tough. It is tough to think about. What about yourself?
Again, I'll touch on it again in terms of the Cove game. I think you're looking at maybe guys like Andrew Shinnie playing in the middle of the park again, who has that eye for a pass that can maybe open them up a little bit. So he would be one I would have in the side. Josh Mullen again, if we're needing to try and break them down for his delivery, would you put him in there? And he's good for a goal as well, Josh, at times. So that might be another option in terms of that if we're needing to break them down and open them up a little bit. But I could have just copy and pasted the Cove preview, to be honest, with what I'm saying, and just edited Cove out and put Kelty in. But if we get an early goal, I think that would suit us again. They need to probably come out a little bit more in terms of trying to get a result in the game. But also with the games being midweek, Kelty having lost their first couple of games, it's got no real meaning for Kelty this game, to be totally honest. So does that play into our hands? I reckon they'll be using it more as a pre-season gauge, to be brutally honest, rather than being competitive. So yeah, I think those are the sort of players I would maybe like to see are more creative ones. As you mentioned, Nubly's been pretty decent recently, but is he going to play Bahambula? He's coming up from England, but try to get him up to speed when it comes to competitive games. So it might be that he features ahead of Josh for that reason. So the other option he's got is, I don't know what the situation is with Jack Hamilton, but in terms of managing Bruce's fitness, I know you mentioned that there. He's been more or less getting 45 minutes a game, because Bruce will be behind everyone else, given that he was out for the last 6 weeks of last season, but maybe giving Jack an opportunity as well, because we know Jack's capable of scoring goals, especially against teams at this level, which he's shown over the last 2 or 3 seasons when he's been out on loan. So it might be an opportunity that he gives Jack 45 minutes to hopefully, as I say, rack up a few goals and give us the best opportunity possible of progressing into the last 16. But let's go predictions then. What do you reckon, Bruni?
Well, you kind of touched on the fact Kelty play midweek as well, so we've got that rest a wee bit, if you will. They're at Cove as well, so again, I can see that being a fairly tight game, so that might play into our hands. I'll go. I don't know. It's difficult with these because I always feel like an Old Firm fan when they play Livingston, and you're like, oh, we should be beating them, we should be putting 3 or 4 past them, etc. But you could ultimately get left with egg on your face. You want to show a wee bit of respect to Kelty because they are, as we've touched on, a good team with some very good players. But just for me, solely based on the fact that Albion Rovers beat them 2-0 at the weekend, and we played them and they didn't look that brilliant. I'll go 3-0 Livingston. I think we should be comfortable in the game. We should rack up a few goals and, again, fingers crossed, progress. What about yourself?
I'm absolutely copying you. I got 3 points at the weekend with my prediction. Thank you, Nicky, for that late winner. But I'm copying you. I'm going to go 3-0. I think And as I say, I'm hoping that that'll be enough to get us into the last 16. But as we mentioned, we're recording on Monday, so we'll have a much better picture of what's required in order to qualify after the results on Tuesday. But hopefully we get a few bums on seats on Saturday to back the team and getting what would be an important 3 points if we can make it to the last 16 of the League Cup.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single person for tuning in week in, week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply give us a message on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Broonie said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Cheers as always, and let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team, and fingers crossed for progression to the last 16 on Saturday.
Livingston, oh Livingston, the Almonville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the